This is a short video just for a few Adobe Lightroom tips and tricks, simple keyboard clicks and simple practices that you may or may not know. You probably know some, you might not know the others. I'm going to start off with auto tone. So up or near the exposure slider on the basics panel, you have an auto button, and if you click auto, Lightroom gives you an automatic rendition of the tone that it thinks your picture would suit. Now this probably won't suit exactly what your tastes are, but it's a good starting point. So if it's a little bit dark, you could lighten it up a bit, or if it's a little too much in the shadows, you could bring the shadows down a bit. And if you click auto, it'll just give you a rough idea of where your picture might go, and then you can tweak it to your own like. Reset button. The next thing is a reset button. So if you decide that none of this is to your tastes, you can go back down to the bottom here and click reset, and everything will go back to 0. Supposing you don't want to undo everything, but you would like to undo perhaps say the blacks, you can obviously slide the black slider until you get to 0, but inevitably you sort of go a little bit past. So you go backwards again and you overshoot a bit the other way, and it's sometimes quite hard to get it exactly back to 0. Instead of doing that, you can just double click the word blacks and it goes to 0, and the same with all the others. So shadows, double click, back to 0, highlights, back to 0. That's an easy way of getting the sliders reset to the center position. Cropping. So when you go to the crop tool, you can change the overlay that's on your crop just by pressing O on the keyboard. So if I click O, it goes to smaller squares, and then a sort of diagonal square, 4 squares, other diagonals. So really it is just an aid to composition. So it shows you good places that you can crop to, and also you get this sort of like golden section spiral as well. And this one gives you different sort of print sizes, so 4x5, 5x7, 2x3, different ratios, and they're a very tiny grid. So to get rid of that, you just click done. Okay, so viewing your picture. If you want to view your picture without the intrusion of all the panels and the controls on the sides, you can use the lights out mode, which is L on the keyboard. So if you click L, everything around the picture just sort of greys out, so it's much less of a distraction. If you click L again, everything completely goes black apart from the image, so it's kind of framed. Click it once more and it's back to normal. Level. So in the crop tool, if you want to get your picture level, supposing this wasn't level, supposing I'd had one leg on my tripod a bit too low and I got the horizon wonky, if you click the angle on the crop panel and then go over to your picture and just draw a line across the horizon straight like that, and then let go, it automatically levels it up. So let's clear that. Before and after views. So if I'd worked the auto button again on my picture and I want to see what it was like originally, all I have to do is press the backslash button on my keyboard. So backslash goes back to how it was before I started editing. Click it again and back to the edit. The other way of before and after views is down just underneath the image where there's these 2 little boxes with a Y on them, and that shows you the before and after next to each other, and you can cycle through those different views of before and after. And then back to the single screen here. Clipping. So if you want to see where your picture is getting blown out in the highlights or blocked up in the shadows, you can turn these clipping highlight controls on or off on the histogram. There's two little triangles, one in the shadow area, one in the highlight area, and if you click them so there's a white square around them, you're going to get warnings when you're going to clipping. So if I slide my exposure slider down, you can see where the blue is taking over the picture. That means all that blue area is completely black, so you don't get any tones in there. At the other end, if you go into overexposure, the red appears, so all that red is completely white. There's no tones there at all. So if you take it back just to where the red just disappears, it means you've got a very light rendition of your image, but you do have some tone in there. And similarly with shadows. Double click the exposure to get that back to 0. Final thing I want to show is the radial adjustment tool for adding a bit of a vignette on your picture instead of doing it with the effects tool. So if you click on radial gradient and then dial in a bit of underexposure, open out an oval on your picture, drag it into the area that you want it, adjust the size to suit the image, make sure you're getting that just where you want it, and then adjust the exposure and you'll see that the middle is getting dark. Now that's not a vignette, is it? That's a center darkness. So if I want a vignette, I just go up to the top here and click on invert, and it goes the opposite way, so that I'm getting a vignette on the edges of my shot. And you can adjust the brightness and the darkness of that to your heart's desire. And if that's just not exactly what you want, then you can get rid of that by just clicking the delete key, and you can start again and draw your oval out as to where you want it. So that's just a few tips that you may or may not have known. Hopefully a few of them will be useful.